From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Sharing the road.
Bless her heart, she didn't see me, and she hit me doing probably 65 or 70, and she never saw me.
One farmer shares his story he hopes will resonate with drivers right now during harvest time. Harvest picks up pace, including in the Show Me State.
I'm Michelle Rook on the I-80 Harvest Tour. We're here in Missouri, a state hit hard by drought this year, but we found one of the garden spots.
As the nation prepares for the very real possibility of a government shutdown.
There are real consequences to real people in a real way when there is a shutdown.
The latest on efforts to stop it from happening right now on AgDay.
AgDay, presented by Pioneer. What's next happens when the testing grounds meet the proving grounds. Pioneer. What's next happens here.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Happening right now, Congress is continuing to work to avoid a government shutdown. The possibility now just 3 days away. But the Senate trying to stave off a federal closure with its own bipartisan plan for a stopgap measure. The proposed legislation would extend funding for a period of 4 to 6 weeks. That's a shorter time frame than the Democrats' initial preference of extending funding into December, but could help passage in the House. However, if House Speaker Kevin McCarthy decides to put the Senate's bill up for a vote, some GOP members have indicated their readiness to attempt his removal from office. Now, earlier this week, Ag Secretary Tom Vilsack detailed what a potential USDA shutdown could mean for nutrition programs and farming.
The WIC program that I talked about today, which is for nearly 7 million moms and children, that program expires, if you will, or stops immediately when the shutdown occurs. We have a contingency fund at USDA that might continue it for a day or two. Some states may have leftover WIC benefits that have not been spent, which could extend it for a week or so in that state. But the vast majority of WIC participants would see an immediate reduction and elimination of those benefits. And it's not just the WIC program, as important and significant as that is. It's also about our farm economy. Now is a time when farmers are harvesting their crops and they're seeking marketing loans, which allow them and assist them in ensuring that they get a decent price for their crop. When we have a shutdown, Farm Service Agency offices in virtually every county of this country shut down, and those loans are not available.
Also this week, Moody's, the rating agency, said a shutdown could lead to a downgrade in the country's credit rating. As we have reported, a possible government shutdown could impact USDA's crop reports next month, but for now, we do have a new crop progress report from the agency. It reports 15% of the U.S. corn crop as harvested. That's about 2% behind average, and 12% of the soybeans are now in the bin. That's 1% ahead of the 5-year average.
With generally favorable conditions in the field and relatively dry conditions in many areas, it's a good incentive this year just to leave the corn and the soybeans out there to dry down naturally. That means you don't have to pay for propane down the road. So I think that's what a lot of producers are, just waiting for that moisture content to come down before harvest.
The I-80 Harvest Tour on AgDay is brought to you by Case IH. The Farm All has been the iconic partner on the farm for generations. Come celebrate a century of Farm All, the one for all, at farmall100.com. And by AGI. At AGI, we spend a lot of time focused on our product details, making sure you can store your grain how you need to and move it when you need to. Learn more at aggrowth.com.
This week, our I-80 Harvest Tour is checking out Missouri, where farmers have harvested 28% of the corn, which is 2% ahead of average, and 4% of the soybeans, 1% ahead of the 5-year average. As AgDay's Michelle Rook reports, despite weather issues, farmers are still managing to produce some respectable crops.
Drought hit farmers hard in the state of Missouri this year, cutting statewide yields, but there are some areas that are bucking that trend.
One of those areas is northwest Missouri, where Bryant Kagi is finding some pleasant surprises this harvest. He says they started off dry, just like the rest of the state, and got the crop planted ahead of normal.
We had enough soil moisture to get the crop off to a really good start. But it was really dry, and it just kind of hung on through those first few months of the season.
The pattern continued mostly dry in his area with just some scattered rain, so their subsoil moisture has been depleted. But he's better off than most, with over half of Missouri in D1 to D4 level drought.
I pulled up the drought monitor map this morning, and there's a little bitty white yellow spot that's right around us, and it's just surrounded by red severe drought areas. So really fortunate to have caught the rain we did.
So somehow they're getting above average corn yields on their farm.
You know, our corn has been anywhere from 210 to 240, which, like I said, is probably 20 or 30% above normal, and you know, on track to be one of our best years ever.
They were also fortunate to have very little tip back from the heat, and stock integrity is solid. The one caveat is heat stress pushed the crop during filling, and so the corn is a bit lighter.
The test weights of the corn we've sold so far have been kind of on that average, what you'd expect for corn, that 56 to 60. Not as high as we had hoped.
And this was the first year they've seen tar spot, which crept in late season.
I don't think it set in early enough to do a lot of yield damage, but it's certainly going to be something we have to look at going forward for management.
While corn harvest is nearly 2/3 done on their farm, it may be a few weeks before they start on soybeans, and expectations are tempered by that dry August weather.
I hate to make a prediction, but I would hope mid 50 to 60, which would still be a really good average for us.
Plus, he says soybean disease pressure was significant.
We have seen a lot of sudden death pressure that came in that early August timeframe. We had all that moisture, beans were planted very early, and we definitely saw, I think there'll be some pockets that have some substantial yield loss from sudden death.
But considering all the adversity during the 2023 growing season, he's still very thankful this harvest season. In Missouri on the I-80 Harvest Tour, I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
And some farmers may have to take a break from the fields today with some rainfall moving through. Meteorologist Matt Engelbrecht helps you plan.
Yeah, of course, the rain is going to come through. You might have to take a bit of a break from the fields, but it's not everyone across the United States. I mean, that would be a pretty big storm. But the point is, we're actually working to a pattern that is going to eliminate substantial rainfall and coverage across the United States. We'll start off for your Wednesday night into Thursday. You see the little U right here. That is a surface low pressure system that is going to be working very slowly across the United States. We lose this low and we start to really lose a lot of the rain chances across not only the Midwest, but the plains as well. Again, this is Thursday at 2 a.m. The pattern that is setting up once this low pressure system, this U, moves off to the north and to the east, it's going to be a ridge of high pressure, a blocking pattern, an omega block over a good portion of the United States. It's right in between this trough and this ridge that will see some of the rainfall, perhaps even some snow in the higher elevations. And Corey continuing to bring home the harvest. Here he is finishing up canola in Manitoba. Next up are the soybeans. He says he hopes everyone is having a good and safe harvest. We hope so too. I'll have more in your forecast coming up.
We've been keeping an eye on this. The Mississippi River expected to drop to historic lows in the days ahead. And it's not just impacting barge traffic on the river. The river also supplies drinking water for millions of people, and it's now vulnerable to a new threat, saltwater intrusion. With no significant rain relief in sight, experts say a saltwater wedge from the Gulf of Mexico will push upriver and could mix with drinking water systems in places like New Orleans. Now, Louisiana officials and the Army Corps of Engineers will start delivering millions of gallons of fresh water to at-risk treatment facilities from plants located above the saltwater wedge.
That water then can be combined with water at the treatment facilities to create a mixture that is safe for treatment.
Engineers also plan to add 25 feet to an existing underwater levee or sill designed to slow the saltwater wedge's progression northward temporarily. It's reported nearly every water gauge along a 400-mile stretch of the river is at or below normal thresholds, according to NOAA and the U.S. Geological Survey. From our reporting partners over at Drovers, an update on current expansion efforts. At least 8 beef packing projects sit in various stages of completion. With that done, it could add 10% to daily capacity. Now, following historic cutout values during the COVID pandemic, the packing industry is expanding. Drovers looking at 8 different projects with the potential to add nearly 12,000 head to the daily harvest capacity. Currently, 3 of the smaller plants are already operating. However, some of the biggest proposed sites are facing headwinds due to a shrinking cattle herd and rising construction costs. You can read more over at drovers.com. Cattle prices continue to pull back. We'll take a look at what's driving them lower coming up next. And later, harvest season is a busy time of year. It can also be dangerous with so many pieces of equipment out on the road. A first-hand account from Louisiana and a farmer with a word of warning in the country. Corn and soybeans pulled back on Tuesday. AgDay's Michelle Rook is back with more on that and the drop in cattle in markets now.
Tuesday's market closes in grains were mixed, mostly lower in the livestock futures. Don Rose, U.S. Commodities, joining us. And Don, let's talk about the grains. Corn and soybeans almost feeling like we're trying to forge some sort of a harvest slow. Is it too early for that?
Well, I think when you look at it exactly, it's the timing of year. You don't want to be overly bearish. We got a key reversal in corn already, so that tells you we've got an intermediate or maybe a major low in. Soybeans, historically, it's been unprecedented. The first week of October, we put in a low, and so it feels like we're trying to work on that. It's work in progress, but that's the direction I think we're trying to go, more upside than downside potential here, Michelle.
What do you think about this cattle market? A down day on Tuesday. Was that risk-off selling pressure just because of the outside markets being down as hard as they were, including the stock market?
Well, the supply side of the market is well documented, just bullish, but there's 2 sides to the story, and the other side is the demand. And I think when you have the end of the week here, is the budget going to be extended or not? Interest rates higher. I think it's a real question mark on what's the demand side of the market look like. And futures were running a premium, and so we took some of that premium out of the market. Technicals are still weak here, funds still long, Michelle.
And with that being said, are the funds going to keep liquidating here? Are they getting those technical signals? Are you worried about downside risk here in that cattle market?
Well, I think you always have to be worried about it when you have premiums in the market, when the trade is so bullish, and you've got a lot of economic concerns out here. So I think most definitely you see some profit taking, and then we'll see if the support areas can hold. But it's a market that is maybe 2 steps forward, 1 back, and it's 1 back for right now.
Ron, you've got to believe, Don, end of month and end of quarter, some of those funds are going to maybe take some profits, right?
Yeah, most definitely. We see that quite frequently where they want to get paid, and so they're putting the money in the bank and then start over again the next month. So particularly when you have a structure the way it is right now, sitting this long in the cattle market and the feeder cattle market.
No doubt. All right, thanks for joining us, Don Rose, U.S. Commodities. That is Markets Now, and we'll have more Ag Day coming up.
For all your risk management and trading needs, call one of the U.S. Commodities specialists at 800-247-4071.
Or look at the severe weather risk coming up on Wednesday. And right what we talked about earlier with that low pressure system, it's a pocket of potentially strong, maybe severe weather produced into Ohio, Indiana, but over a good portion of Kentucky. And what we're talking about are a few isolated tornadoes, damaging winds, heavy rain, and it is warm enough for some large hail as well. Again, it's going to be a few isolated severe thunderstorms in this area coming up on Wednesday, and then by Thursday and Friday, that low pressure system lifts off to the north and east, and it's a blank slate in regards to severe weather across the United States on Thursday. That should also carry into Friday. Now, I really want to get into the jet stream and kind of that overall pattern that is now starting to take shape. Something we visited the last couple of days that is now really starting to show up in the data is an omega block, or a blocking pattern into the weekend. So I'll take you through your Wednesday and Thursday. Start to see a ridge. You get more of an upside down U or a kind of a mountain up here towards the north, and then a valley down over here towards the west. Now that is going to be your high pressure system as well as your low pressure system, or your trough and your ridge. That's on Friday. Watch what happens Saturday and into Sunday. We get this amplitude, this high amplitude ridge over 2/3 of the United States. You get a cutoff low over here and over here. There's your omega block. And the reason I point that out is with this kind of blocking pattern, as we talked about yesterday, the energy can't go through the ridge. It's got to go up and over. So all of that boils down to a quiet and warm pattern Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday where this ridge is setting up. And then not necessarily stormy, but kind of wet weather on the East Coast and especially back over here towards the West Coast. Again, that's what we're going to be following into next week. Let's talk about Blair, not the person, the city. Sunny, high around 85 degrees, low of 48. What about Nevada? Mostly sunny with a few isolated clouds, high of 78 degrees. Oxford, Oxford, Ohio, cloudy, high around 76 degrees.
AgDay is brought to you by AgoroCarbon. AgoroCarbon works with farmers and ranchers to implement sustainable practices on farms and ranches that provides a new revenue stream. AgoroCarbon.com. AgDay is brought to you by ESN. Maximize the performance of your nutrient applications and minimize nitrogen loss by applying ESN. Learn how at smartnitrogen.com.
Over time, farmers that use soil health practices to flip their soil are seeing the results of their systems at harvest. Anthony Blyes, a soil specialist at South Dakota State University, but also a farmer that's been incorporating soil health practices for over 30 years. Checking his fields prior to harvest, he sees the benefits not just above ground, but below ground with active nightcrawler activity.
The biological life is cycling the crop residues. And that's a great thing because we know with that cycling, there's nutrients that become available for the following crops.
And he says that results in better yields when the combines roll and at a lower production cost.
Soil health system down the road with the improved biology and that cycling, I'm convinced my first year corn can outcompete any conventional system around. I really do. Because of the inputs that are there that have been reduced because of that.
Bly also sees a yield bump due to the diversity of rotations he has on his farm, breaking up that corn and soybean cycle. What does Iowa State football have to do with pork? A lot right now, and it's going viral. All right, check it out. That's Cyclones players Miles Purchase, Tyler Moore, Tommy Hammond, and Caleb Bacon, leading the new Purchase More Ham and Bacon marketing campaign for Iowa pork producers. Now, the Iowa Pork Producers Association saying with these four great names on the team, it was an opportunity it couldn't pass up. IPPA President Trish Cook says the four men are not only great football players, but also have strong academic records to go along with those great last names. Well, next month is National Pork Month, and the organization says this promotion will be part of that month-long celebration. As for the players, Miles Purchase says it's something unique and adds that it feels good to be able to do something for a good cause. Focusing on farm safety is always important. Up next, we'll meet a producer who knows the risks firsthand, both on the farm and off. We head to Louisiana today in the country. We just wrapped up National Farm Safety and Health Week. As you know, each year, accidents happen on highways involving farm equipment. Unfortunately, many of those accidents result in the loss of life. This week in Louisiana Agriculture's Carl Wiggers introduces us to a farmer who knows the dangers firsthand.
Most time I've heard of my neighbors getting hit on their tractors and stuff, but you don't think it's ever going to happen to you. You know, you had the flashers on, you had a slow moving sign on, and I feel like I was doing everything right that I can. I had a hay fork on the front and a hay fork on the back. My hay fork was up in the air, and bless her heart, she didn't see me, and she hit me doing probably 65 or 70, and she never saw me.
Sometimes farmers like Buckshot Sims of Franklin Parish have no choice but to get on the highways. He has farmland on the north side of Winsboro as well as the south. Sims says he is very blessed to be alive.
The good Lord was with both of us. It was, to look at the vehicle and what actually happened, it'll scare you, and it makes you want to put your phone down.
There's a person on that thing that you could hurt. I know you could very well hurt yourself. So slow down, get off your phones, and pay attention to what your surroundings are, because those tractors, they want to get off the highway as quickly as they can.
Daniel Stevenson is the director for the central region of the LSU Ag Center. Another precaution they take here at Dean Lee is to avoid highways at major traffic times.
To my right here is Highway 3170, which is kind of where Bulls Parish comes to Alexandria. Between 7 and 8, don't get a tractor on that road. Highway 71 runs from LeCount through Alexandria. Between 7 and 8, don't put a tractor on the highway because that's when they're heavily trafficked.
The main thing is stay off the phones, and that's usually the problem.
All right, thanks to Carl and This Week in Louisiana Agriculture for sharing that story. That's all the time we have today. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day out on Farm Country.